we talked about financial difficulties. We talked about, especially with international students, and I know you as a person, you've gotten scholarships from Google, from Apple, from different organizations that I don't can't even remember all of them. How will you, how will you, you know, you will, two things. I know we are tech, or we have a tech background, and I also want us to address people, students that are coming from non-tech background. How do students, win scholarships, one, or and also how can students use, uh, handle financial challenges while in school? Make the best use of, okay, I have this financial issues, or yes, I have these financial issues. How can I solve it? What are the things they can do? I know that generally there are things we can undo and the things we cannot undo, but for the things we can undo, what can we do about it, especially in the area of scholarships? So, yeah.
Right. No, great question. So I guess just to kind of clarify, I did get scholarships from Google, Adobe, and Microsoft. So
Okay.
not Apple.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe Apple someday. It's okay.
Maybe one day.
So I think you're being prophetic. I claim it.
Amen.
Anyways. So yeah. Okay. Whew. So yeah, getting those scholarships. So initially it started off with Microsoft, right? I got the first, like that was like my first yes when it comes to scholarships. Okay, let me actually go back before I can just delve into.
That's fine.
Okay, so coming into college, like I said, I didn't know much about financial aid or just how. I know all the schools I applied to had like this merit scholarship, right? So the way it works is that they would evaluate my grades, and based on how well I did, like in my final report, SATs, and all of that, like they would kind of assess me and give me like a scholarship if they think I was deserving of it, right? So not many people know this, but I actually missed my CSS profile deadline. Yes, I missed it, and that's a main way for international students to get financial aid aside your merit scholarship. And
sorry, can you repeat that again, please?
Okay, I'll repeat it. So I said that not many people know this, but I actually missed my CSS profile deadline.
Okay.
So as an
what's
international
CSS,
student,
please?
yes, so CSS profile is basically what you have to complete when you're applying for like any. I think most schools, honestly, I don't say all, but I believe most schools.
Okay.
It's basically an application that you get to like submit to show like how badly you need financial aid, right?
Okay.
So merit scholarships, merit scholarships or merit aid, it's not something that you have to apply for. Basically, just based on your grades, it's like they assess you based on how well they think you've performed. But with CSS, the CSS profile is something you have to apply for, right? And as I guess for me, I didn't know what it was. For me, I thought it was like a loan I had to take or something. So I missed the deadline. And when I eventually found out what it actually was, I'd already missed the deadline. The school was like, oh, sorry, you can't submit it. Now, something else I would say was, yes. So please do your research. And one thing I would say was I was down to two schools. So the school I'm currently in now, and then another school that I was considering. Now that other school, it was a much smaller school.
Yeah.
They gave me an amazing like financial aid offer. Like it was in Maryland as well. They put me in their honors program automatically, which even gave me more aid. So it was very convenient and financially satisfying, if I should use that word.
Yeah.
However, I was looking at long term, like, will I be fulfilled here? This is such a small school. It's a small city. I don't exactly know what I want to do. Even though at that time I was saying I wanted to study medicine, knowing myself, I knew that, okay, this medicine probably wouldn't work. But at the same time, I was like, I really want to be in a place that would put me at the center of opportunities. And I'm very thankful that I had parents who believed in me to take that risk with me, to allow me to go to a school that was a lot more expensive. Now, Drexel only gave me a merit aid, which still was not enough. Like, it's still, compared to the entire thing, I mean, I was grateful for it, but it still was not enough, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Ledo, your parents agreed, for you to attend this school, you need to find money. Like, you need to find money. So again, knowing that my parents, had believed in me that much, and knowing that I really wanted to ease that burden on them, because my older sister had actually already been in college, and like I just saw how that process was, and how it wasn't really easy on my parents. Sometimes your parents don't have to tell you something, like you already kind of know.
Exactly.
So
I agree with you.
exactly. So that was like, I was so coming again my freshman year and just going into college. I knew that I had to get academic scholarships somehow, since I had already missed this other opportunity to get like more aid from my school. And one thing about my school I would say that was a bit annoying was there was not really that much opportunity to get like more aid, right, once you're already in school.
Oh, okay.
So it was more like you most times you can only get what you get coming in, right? You know how some school can allow you to apply for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't get me wrong though, departments might have like their own specific scholarship, but
Yes,
it's really
definitely.
hard for like you to get like a new financial aid package or a new scholarship.
Okay.
So with that being said, second, I would say again, first year I won't lie, I was just like trying to find my feet. I thought about it, but I really wasn't acting on it. But I would say second year was really when I was like, okay, let's find this money. I know there's money somewhere, let me find it. One thing I would say is all the scholarships I got, I did not find them on Google. I know, very hard to believe, because it seems like that's like the largest search engine, and it just has all the answers, which actually brings me to my first point, is to leverage the people around you, leverage your community. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about like my college experience was I became very involved in many different like organizations and communities. But yeah, so leverage the people that you have around you, because one thing I learned, and okay, I know we're not asking for advice, but I will just chip this in, is that as an international student, one of my mantras is you can go fast on your own, but you can go far together, right? So my first year, I think where I made the mistake was I was trying to do it on my own. Like, okay, let me search for this, let me do this. And the truth is, I easily became burned out. But when I started talking to people about like what I was interested in, my situation, like, oh, hey guys, I really need, I'm finding scholarships. People became like my eyes and my ears, right? They were looking out for me. They were hearing for me. They were sending things my way. I think 2 of the scholarships I received, I didn't even see them. Someone else actually told me about it and I applied for it, right? So it was like when I started, again, I wasn't like using people, but I was connecting people authentically, genuinely, telling them who I am and what my story is and what I need. They were moved by it. They were moved to help me, right? Again, they didn't give me the money I needed, but they were like my channels to the opportunities that I eventually found. So I think that's one thing I would say is, yes, I'm not saying that searching on Google is not great. I think one challenge I had was I would see scholarships, but many of them had that US citizen restriction or green card residence. So it was almost like, okay, yes, there was so much, there were so many scholarships, but how come that one restriction against just not being, like, it basically didn't apply to me as an international student. So I would say definitely leverage people, leverage communities, be involved, even if it's not so I guess now going on to like the whole, even if you're non-tech, right, there's a community for every whether you're business, engineering, like arts, bio, like STEM, or like the sciences, like there
accounting.
Exactly, there's well, even if it's not in your school, it might be outside, which is another thing. Yes, you are in school, right? But look beyond the 4 walls of your college.
Exactly.
Right? Like there is.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, I tell people this. One of the reasons why I loved LinkedIn so much is because LinkedIn exposed me to a different world outside Drexel University. For me coming here, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like Drexel's such a big school. But then when I got on LinkedIn, I was like, nah, like there is so much more outside. There is so much more that Drexel, and it's not, and it's no college. No college can give you everything you need, and that's okay. Even in classes, they tell you that your professors only teach you like 20% of what you need to know. Like you need to find the rest outside. Like you need to do your own, research. Likewise with college as well. No college will give you like 100% of everything, right? So it's up to you as a student to be on like that quest and really find out, okay, what else can I find for myself to help my journey. So for me, again, just running with that, I was like, okay, there. Again, these are not scholarships that my school even told me about to say, oh, hey, you can apply for it. It was something that I had to find by myself and with God's help, of course. So I okay again talking more about like the whole winning scholarships. The application is also important. So yes, so
Yeah.
the first step is
So
okay.
let me just say
Sure.
something. So first thing you said is some of these opportunities, and you won't be able to see them on Google
Yes.
search. It's based on your network with other people that they become your
And
eyes
my
and your
ears.
ears, and that has really helped you to apply for even things that people will go and people won't see on maybe Google search or Facebook or any other platform where they hope to get information.
Yes.
So networking is very
Yes.
important. I just want to
Yes.
clear that
Yes.
part. Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
So
think that would be like my one tip when it comes to actually finding, you know, the
yes,
scholarship. Now, when it comes to the second part, which is like the process and the application, this carries
yeah,
as much weight. So it's one thing to find out that something exists. It's another thing to now get it, right? So,
yes,
and this for me was the hardest part because I one thing I think I've really struggled with is applying for things, and that's because I would always count myself out. And that's why my first year I would say I wasn't really doing as much because I would always maybe I would like look at the requirements, I would look at the criteria, I'm like, oh no, I'm not like this, I don't have this skill, I don't meet this, this requirement, therefore I'm not going to apply, right? So it was something that it was
yeah,
not easy for me to just like see something and apply for it. Um, so with that being said, I would say like I had to change my strategy, right, when it comes to applying for something.
okay,
So one thing I would do was I would just always try to like have like a Google Doc or like maybe Microsoft OneNote. I'll keep a link of anything I saw on LinkedIn, whether it was a program, a scholarship, just anything. I would just save it. Like I would write what it was. Maybe it's like BlackRock Founder Scholarship, and I have the link there. I
okay,
would also have like a column for deadline, so I knew when it's due, right? So
yeah,
that would just kind of give me an idea of okay, maybe if I have 3 months, okay, that can kind of wait for a bit, and then maybe if something else was like a month, due in a month's time, I would work on that first. So just kind of having that like
yeah,
because I think many times students just you can't keep everything in your head. That's one thing that I've learned. I don't know
exactly.
I don't know who I thought I was. Well, I thought I could keep everything just in my head, but I
You
exactly
can't.
so whether that again if you're more like hard copy you want to write it down, that's also fine. You can have like maybe calendars and have like
Yeah,
reminders on your wall, just something to remind you that okay, these things are there and I need to apply for them, right?
yeah,
So but then with the actual application I would say okay, I actually have a podcast. I was interviewed on a podcast like I think a month ago where I talk more about like the application. So I don't know if this can be included, but I'll try to maybe like share the link with you.
yes, yes, we'll definitely
Okay.
put it out there, and it's going to be on the notes section of the
Okay.
YouTube, so people can just
Okay.
click on it
Awesome.
and talk about more application. I know we can't dive a lot
Yes.
into all
Yeah.
that,
But
but
I would
yeah,
just say one thing I would say just for the application is I want students to know because I think many times people just think of oh when they see an application or see like a scholarship, okay, this looks good, let me apply for it. But don't be too in a rush. I think for me, how I started to think was, okay, if I was on the other end, let's say I was the one that had all the money and I wanted to give it to a student,
yes,
right? What kind of student would I want to invest in? That now made me write my application in the way that without understanding,
this,
right? So I knew that okay, something shallow was not going to cut it. Just saying just
yes,
putting a bunch of adjectives and just describing who I was not going to cut it. One thing I had to do was to quantify my impact, and that's one tip I would say in the
wow,
application is tell people what
wow,
you've done. Don't just say I'm a leader or I'm I have excellent communication skills. Tell me the ways in which you've maximized or you have shown these things. That's what really makes you stand out. Anyone can say anything like, "Oh, I'm smart. I'm like." Okay, all of those are great. However, people really want to say what makes you stand out. How can
yeah,
how can you prove to me that you've done this or you're this person like you truly say that you are? So never be afraid to
yeah,
quantify your impact. Now, quantity does not always mean like numbers. Like yes, if you have numbers, so let's say you've worked on a project. Let's say you're talking about leadership, right? You want to talk about how you've led a community or you've led an on-campus organization. Maybe it's 50 people. You want to include that because as the reader, that tells me, that kind of gives me an idea of how many people you manage, right? Let's say it's 100 people,
Yes.
or 200. I'm like, wow, okay, this person really, if they're able to manage a 200 person organization for over an academic year, like, this really tells me that they have leadership qualities, right? So if you can,
Yes.
if you have those numbers, include them. Obviously, don't fabricate things, don't just make up numbers. um
Mm.
if you have, if you can actually, like, what's the word, if you can attest to them, because sometimes some of these scholarships actually have an interview portion. One of my scholarships actually made me
Yes.
go through another round of interview even after I applied. So you want to
Wow.
be sure that you're being, genuine and authentic. But don't be afraid
Yes.
to tell people what you have done. Don't be
You're
afraid to tell
done.
people, who you are. My
Mm.
all round tip when it comes to applying is, I make it a blend of storytelling and getting straight to the point. So I don't just dive
Okay.
into answering. I try not to make my essays a bullet point. I don't like to make, like, oh, I've done this, I did this, I did that, I did that. It's okay, like, but it's not. I really want to have my reader hooked. I'll share
Mm.
something. My Adobe scholarship. So my program manager for the scholarship, we're very, very close. Even after, the the award ceremony, and so I actually had the chance to speak to her, um, like a virtual chat one of these days, and she told me that actually she was one of the early reviewers of my application. And she said from the moment she read
Wow.
my application, from just like, I think, my first essay or something, she said this girl's going to be a winner. Like, and I didn't know this obviously until later
Wow.
on. I don't know what it was, but I try to ensure that when I'm writing an application, I want my reader to say, who is this person? Like, I don't want it to just be like, oh,
Mm.
this is good, this is great. I really want them to say, wow, okay, we need this person, or we need to invest in her, right? So
Mm.
that kind of mindset gives me that push to not just do okay work, but to do exceptional work when it comes to whatever I'm writing.
Wow.
So, and that might be even asking people for input or their advice as well, right? Because sometimes what you want to communicate, like, it makes sense in your head, but it's just not making sense on paper, right? So maybe just even
Mm.
rubbing mind to other people to say, oh, hey, this is how I want to talk about this experience, but if the words are not coming, just having those, that extra, like, input, and that extra eye really helps, can go a long way in your application. So yeah, I would really
Wow.
say, one, if I can give, like, one major tip for applications, whether they're scholarships or even, like, other things as well, is never be
Mm.
afraid to tell people what you've done. Never be afraid to show the ways you have achieved impact, because anyone, just like with, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but just one thing I learned was, how with interviews they tell you, don't make your resume a job description.
Yeah.
They want to see, okay, even let's say you were a software engineer, right? Okay, anyone can write code, but people want to see, with the code that
Yes.
you've written,
What
how
you've
did it
done.
help the team? How did it help the company?
Mm.
How did you increase
Mm.
efficiency? How did you maybe minimize waste, right? So that's what really makes you, anyone can write code for 12 weeks and just say they did an internship. But what really makes you stand
Mm.
out and makes you probably get a return offer is the ways you've been able to make impact. So I applied that same logic to my essays. Is, okay, people don't just want to see that I've been a student. People really want to see that, though, even in your 2-3 years in college, what have you been able to achieve? How have you been able to help people? And now I now translate
Mm.
that to my essays as well.
So yes, I just want to ask a question on the resources you use in your scholarship applications, especially for your very first application. Like, I'm sure you needed some guidelines
Mm-hmm.
and somebody to put you forward, or
Yeah.
maybe like a website. Maybe you googled something about storytelling. So, what are the resources you use, and how? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great question. In terms of resources, especially for my first scholarship, I think the only resource I used is actually just having people, like, read over my essay. I
Okay.
didn't really, like, search for any article on, like, storytelling, and I say that because I think one thing I believe I can do to an extent is, like, write, right? And, like, just be able to tell people,
Oh,
share
okay.
my story. So again, I think it's also you need to, like, know your strengths and know your weaknesses. So let's say your strength is more in like verbally, right, speaking, compared to written. Maybe you might need to get extra resources, right?
Yeah.
But maybe if your strength is more like writing than maybe speaking, then okay, maybe writing applications might not be as difficult for you. So I think for me, the main resource I used was especially for the first one, was actually having people check my essay. At that time, there was no like blueprint for, oh, this is how you get a Microsoft scholarship. However, for the next one, which was Adobe, I actually went to search, because I think most of the scholarships, or some not, yeah, some or most of them have like past winners, right? So
Yes.
honestly, LinkedIn being my best friend, I literally just went on LinkedIn. I just put
And
someone's name,
Yes.
and I connected. I think I connected with maybe like 3 or 4, and
That's
I
good.
think one of them, because again, like you don't only want to reach out to one person, because you never know if that person will get back to you. So why not like maybe spread your options, right? Like have more options. So only one person got back to me, and her insight was so valuable, right? Again, she didn't tell
Wow.
me, she didn't like write my essay for me, no, but she gave me this one tip, and that tip was to, because it was a diversity scholarship, like basically it was Adobe wanting to invest in like other women in tech. She encouraged me to
Wow.
really ensure that I am talking about the way I love and the way I have been very active with diversity and inclusion. So
Oh,
having
wow.
that in the back of my mind, again, I didn't put that in every essay response, but as much as I
Yeah.
could, I was emphasizing that, okay, this is how passionate I am about D&I. I'm not saying that alone gave me, eventually made me get it, but I didn't leave any stone unturned. I was ensuring that I was really communicating who I was. Even my reference letters was
Yes.
speaking the same message about me. That's actually something I talk about, your resources, your recommendations, because that is also as powerful. But again, I would say
I
um,
Yeah.
reach
Yeah.
out to your, oh, not reach out, but I would say refer to the podcast to learn more about that.
So yes, just like I said, the link of the poster is going to be on the notes section of the YouTube for everybody to go and just listen to in detail how to apply for, for these scholarships and these opportunities. However, like one thing, just like we say, LinkedIn is an amazing place, really amazing.
Yes.
It's a life transforming
Yes, I
platform,
agree. It
life
is life.
transforming.
It is. It is.
I don't even know like stories I've heard of
Yeah.
people getting jobs, getting linking up with people that have helped them becoming business partners,
Yeah.
you know, different stories, and this is it's amazing.
Mm.
And these are resources, are tools that that are available to everyone,
Mm.
everyone
Yeah.
at free of charge, available at free of charge to
Honestly.
everyone and anyone that is interested to take advantage of that. And forget about being shy.
Mm.
If you really want to go far in life, just like you said, you need to go with people.
Yes.
You can't do it all alone. You
Yeah.
have to leverage other platforms like LinkedIn to be able to connect, and
Yes.
you just have to beat that moment.
Mm.
Blessing has an amazing story of how
Yes.
she talked about being shy and things
Mm.
like that, and it's seeing her right now and like, wow, are you really that shy? You're like, no.
Yeah.
Just like you two, you shared your own story
Mm.
too. So definitely LinkedIn is very, very important.
Yeah.
And maybe one of these days we'll kind of see as a student, like what can I actually maybe bring in someone here to talk about what can I actually post on LinkedIn. Like, okay, people post about certification about but I'm a student, what can I contribute to LinkedIn? Like, and we'll probably delve into it later on, bring in maybe Blessing to talk about, even delve into more about personal branding and using LinkedIn. I think that's great, and I think that's one of the things that she's passionate about.
Yes.
We can definitely bring someone like that. I don't know, do you want to say anything else on scholarships before we move on to the next thing?
I think this is the biggest, the biggest tip, and the best tip I would actually say is to be confident, right? Because whether you like it or not, how you feel about yourself affects the way you speak for yourself, affects the way you write about yourself, right? So one, I was actually having a scholarship session back in May. I'll talk more about that later on. And one of the tips I was giving students is to watch your word choice. So if I'm reading an application and I'm seeing words like, oh, I think, or I guess, that tells me that you don't really know what you're saying, right?
Not
So,
your things. Yes.
and
Yes.
even if everything else has been very powerful, once I get to that point, it's almost like I start to have like an inkling of doubt, like, okay, like I guess. So you really, again, I feel like when it comes to writing, you have like less leeway than like maybe speaking in an interview, right?
Exactly.
So you really want to ensure that every word, every sentence is speaking something about you that is strong,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
That's not really the time to talk about like your weaknesses. Even if they talk, like even if some essays might say, okay, tell me about the weakness you have, you always want to turn it to a strength. So I would say confidence is so important. It's not something that there's no formula for it. There's no course. I think, okay, maybe there are courses on like building self-confidence, but it's really something that you have to determine for yourself and say, oh, hey, you know what? Yes, I won't lie. I got to a point where I said, okay, yes, these scholarships are very competitive. However, I can also get it, right? Like I'm not going to count myself out anymore. I'm not going to keep on telling myself I can't do this because I've not had enough experience. Even with the little I had done, I was like, that is enough for me to sell myself, right? So it's all it's a kind of like it's like kind of think of it like a market. You want to like you literally have to just ensure that you are captivating people with your story. And again, there's like attitude and there's tones when it comes to how you speak and the way you write.
Yes, thank you so much, Ledo, for that. I think another thing I want us to talk about is, you, you know, we talk about, writing stories for your scholarship and things like that, and most of the times we don't have anything to write, like, what you've done and what you will achieve and things like that. But another thing that I'm sure it's always helpful is volunteering at different events, going for conferences and things like that. Those are part of the stories you can, talk about,
Yes. And even activities on campus as well.
Yes.
So anyways, you've been involved on campus.
Exactly.
I think something I would say was because my freshman year, when I was applying and I knew that I didn't have much to talk about, that gave me the inspiration to actually do more things.
Exactly.
Because again, I can't just talk about one experience. I wanted to have so if you feel like you don't have enough to talk about, maybe it's time to start putting yourself out there.
Yes.
And again, it's not about you doing everything, just doing something.
Exactly. I like that. Thank you for talking about that.